Ronald Reagan gave a remarkable speech on July 4th, 1986, Independence Day address, a speech that Obama is incapable of giving and would never give. And Mr. Producer found it. And since tomorrow is Independence Day, I thought you'd want to hear part of it. We can only play a few minutes, and then we'll continue with the callers and move on to a few other subjects. But again, it's worth listening to this so you know what a real leader sounds like, a real patriot sounds like. Because frankly, that's what we're missing today in the political sense. So here's Reagan, July 4th, 1986, cut 4, go.
My remarks tonight will be brief, but it's worth remembering that all the celebration of this day is rooted in history. It's recorded that shortly after the Declaration of Independence was signed in Philadelphia, celebrations took place throughout the land, and many of the former colonists, they were just starting to call themselves Americans, set off cannons and marched in fife and drum parades. What a contrast with the sober scene that has taken place a short time earlier in Independence Hall. 56 men came forward to sign the parchment. It was noted at the time that they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors. That was more than rhetoric. Each of those men knew the penalty for high treason to the crown. We must all hang together, Benjamin Franklin said, or assuredly we will all hang separately. And John Hancock, it is said, wrote his signature in large script so King George could see it without his spectacles. They were brave. They stayed brave through all the bloodshed of the coming years. Their courage created a nation built on a universal claim to human dignity, on the proposition that every man, woman, and child had a right to a future of freedom. For just a moment, let us listen to the words again. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Last night, when we rededicated Miss Liberty and relit her torch, we reflected on all the millions who came here in search of the dream of freedom, inaugurated in Independence Hall. We reflected, too, on their courage in coming great distances and settling in a foreign land and then passing on to their children and their children's children. The hope symbolized in this statue here just behind us, the hope that is America. It is a hope that someday every people and every nation of the world will know the blessings of liberty.
This is a speech he gave on the USS John F. Kennedy in New York Harbor, where they're rededicating the Statue of Liberty. Is the sound on this okay, Mr. Producer, as it goes over the airwaves? Because there's one other portion I want the folks to hear, unless it's the sound is annoying. So you think it's okay? Okay. But this is very, very interesting. Cut 5, go.
All through our history, our presidents and leaders have spoken of national unity and warned us that the real obstacle to moving forward the boundaries of freedom, the only permanent danger to the hope that is America, comes from within. It's easy enough to dismiss this as a kind of familiar exhortation. Yet the truth is that even two of our greatest founding fathers, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, once learned this lesson late in life. They worked so closely together in Philadelphia for independence. But once that was gained and a government was formed, something called partisan politics began to get in the way. After a bitter and divisive campaign, Jefferson defeated Adams for the presidency in 1800. And the night before Jefferson's inauguration, Adams slipped away to Boston, disappointed, broken-hearted, and bitter. For years, their estrangement lasted. But then, when both had retired, Jefferson at 68 to Monticello and Adams at 76 to Quincy, they began through their letters to speak again to each other. Letters that discussed almost every conceivable subject: gardening, horseback riding, even sneezing is a cure for hiccups, but other subjects as well. The loss of loved ones, the mystery of grief, sorrow, the importance of religion, and of course the last thoughts, the final hopes of two old men, two great patriarchs for the country that they had helped to found and loved so deeply. It carries me back, Jefferson wrote about correspondence with his co-signer of the Declaration of Independence, to the times when, beset with difficulties and dangers, we were fellow laborers in the same cause, struggling for what is most valuable to man, his right to self-government, laboring always at the same oar, with some wave ever ahead threatening to overwhelm us, and yet passing harmless, we rode through the storm with heart and hand. It was their last gift to us, this lesson in brotherhood, in tolerance for each other, this insight into America's strength as a nation. And when both died on the same day, within hours of each other, that date was July 4th, 50 years exactly after that first gift to us, the Declaration of Independence. My fellow Americans, it falls to us to keep faith with them and all the great Americans of our past. Believe me, if there's one impression I carry with me after the privilege of holding for 5.5 years the office held by Adams, Jefferson, and Lincoln, it is this, that the things that unite us, America's past of which we're so proud, our hopes and aspirations for the future of the world and this much-loved country, these things far outweigh what little divides us. So tonight, we are reaffirmed that Jew and Gentile, we are one nation under God. The black and white, we are one nation indivisible. That Republican and Democrat, we are all Americans. Tonight, with heart and hand, through whatever trial and travail, we pledge ourselves to each other and to the cause of human freedom, the cause that has given light to this land and hope to the world.
Now, it's a little unusual for me to play two clips in a row that go on that long for over 5 minutes. But I feel in this time in our history, with the present occupant of the White House, with all these people you see on cable TV, I thought it was necessary. I thought it was necessary to hear a real leader. Many of you who lived during the Reagan presidency, you love the man. You adore him. And this is why. Because he loved America. He loved being president. And he did what he thought was right. The two words, fundamental transformation, would never have crossed Ronald Reagan's lips. Ever. Rather than trying to destroy one industry after another, Reagan would try and do those things a president can do. To strengthen them. So they could compete better in the world. So they would become more prosperous. Create more jobs and more opportunities. Reagan didn't attack success. He admired it. Talked about it. Reagan didn't want more people on the food stamps program than ever before in history. He didn't want more people on welfare than ever before in history. He didn't think it was progress when the unemployment rate was as high as it is today. He thought America was the greatest country man had ever established and could only get greater in the right environment and under the right circumstances. Ronald Reagan never went overseas and apologized for this country. He went overseas and he stood up to dictators on behalf of this country. Well, Ronald Reagan wasn't a dictator. He couldn't fix everything. There were times when he had to make, political deals. But he always based his decisions on principle. Not some alien principle about redistributing wealth. about changing our nation, about defying the Constitution. No, the other principles about upholding our society. This is the kind of speech Reagan gave all the time. When you go to the Reagan Library, you can see it. It's inspiring. It's invigorating. The president today was a man who has contempt for you. When all the clutter is moved out of the way, he has contempt for you. He has contempt for your success. He has contempt for the decisions you make about what kind of automobile you want to drive. He has contempt for the decisions you make for your children, what kind of medical care they should have or what they should be able to eat. He has contempt for your decisions about how much electricity you're going to use or other forms of fuel. He has contempt for your lifestyle, your ancestry. He has contempt written all over him. When somebody talks about fundamentally transforming America, they're talking about fundamentally transforming Americans. We are America. You and me, our brothers and sisters, our co-workers, our neighbors and friends. America isn't a concept. America is a reality. America is a magnificent place because we are magnificent people. And we are magnificent people because we're tolerant, we're beneficent, we believe in the rule of law, we love our society. We love the founders. We understand this heritage that we have is a heritage no other people on the face of the earth have ever had or will ever have. We understand how precious liberty is and yet how vulnerable it is to tyranny. We have nothing but admiration for the men and women who've gone before us and who've put their lives on the line to found this nation and to preserve this nation, and the men and women who do it today. These are very, very scary times. Very scary times. And all we ask of the President of the United States is to follow the Constitution, and he won't. All we ask of the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court to do is to follow the Constitution, and he won't. All we ask of the Democrats in Congress is to follow the Constitution, and they won't. Well, this is our heritage. It's our Constitution. It's our country. They're not going to fundamentally transform us, are they? We're going to push back. We're going to take this country back. We're going to reestablish a constitutional republic. Because we have no choice. We're at a real crossroads now. The name on one road is liberty. The name on the other road is tyranny. They're trying to drag us down the road of tyranny. I say we don't go.